What's up, everybody? It's Will at Schedule Fly, and I am very excited today to be here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, with Brandon Sharp at Hawthorne Wood. This place is just opened on April 6th. They're already doing extremely well, got a great reputation. And Brandon's reputation is just as good as one could be. He's a 7-time Michelin star winner. He's been in the business been cooking for over 20 years, and spent a lot of time in some of the best restaurants in the country, from New Orleans to California for a long time, and now is back home in Chapel Hill, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Happy to be back in North Carolina.
Yeah. And so you came back a couple of years ago and worked at Carolina Inn.
Right. I really lucked out with a fantastic position as executive chef at the Carolina Inn. The previous chef had just left and had just, serendipitously landed at the sort of the beacon of hospitality, or, that's the way I've always thought of it, here in Chapel Hill. So really lucky to have been there. 2 years flew by. It was a great experience.
You had wanted to be there since you were young. Did I read that?
Well, it was one of those places that my grandparents took me, and it's just, again, it's just a beacon of what it was so fancy when I was a kid, and it still is, really the apex of hotels around here. So
you were a philosophy major here at UNC Chapel Hill, right?
Right.
Did you?
You could call it that. Yeah.
Okay, so that was what you...
Well, I was already working in kitchens at the time. I worked at the Weather Vane when it was out at Eastgate, which most people I tell now don't even remember that. And the chef there, Devin Mills, I told him, I study philosophy. He's like, you're going to be cooking for a long time. He called it back then.
Did you think you would? Is it something? Did you have an early passion for it? Is it something you thought you'd do, or
no? I just kept working in restaurants and until I was a restaurant worker, and that's what I did and what I was. I went to culinary school a couple years after graduating from Carolina, and by then the momentum was certainly starting to build for me. I used to go to the bookstore before work, and at one point I realized I was not looking in the fiction and poetry section anymore. I was checking out the cookbooks, and then my interest just began to build, and reinforced by great mentors, and it just gained momentum, I would say.
But you didn't cook as a kid or have a lot of interest in...
No, I was a finicky eater as a kid. Just
really?
A regular. Oh, yeah. Little things like picking the mushrooms out of the spaghetti sauce and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah. But now I read somewhere that you were talking about not wanting to waste a meal.
Right. Yeah, that's a big thing for me and Elizabeth, my wife, when we're, especially someplace unfamiliar, because, you don't eat all day long, but you want to have something. It doesn't have to be fancy, but you just don't want to end up somewhere where you're just like, oh man, that just didn't do it for me, and I wish I'd have made another choice. But
is part of that? You're a triathlete, or you are
used to?
Yeah,
I was. I did triathlons for 7 years. And what do you do to stay fit? You're really fit.
It's funny. I just do my own thing at the gym, kind of. But I'm like obsessed with I got to go 5 days a week, and it's kind of like I guess it's my addiction or whatever you want to call it. But it's kind of hardwired into me. At this point. Yeah.
Well, I know the listeners can't see you, but this guy looks like a pro triathlete. But sorry, what was the question?
Well, I was just curious. So you were a triathlete, and you obviously are still fit yourself. Is diet becomes a big part of that? I know.
I think that I worked out so that I could eat as much as I wanted to.
Okay.
I didn't have a history in endurance sports. It's something that I dearly loved to do, and it was satisfying in different ways, but it did allow me to eat whatever I wanted to. Yeah.
When we were younger, I did run in my 20s. I ran a marathon, and I was like, and I never really ran a whole lot, and I was like, I'm going to do a marathon, and I went and started training, and I was like, the best part about this is I can eat whatever the hell I want. Like, if I literally want to come home in the evening and have 3 bowls of ice cream, it's totally cool, because I cannot put on weight. I don't think it's the same now, though. In the 40s, like, it doesn't really matter what you do. At some point, it starts to catch up to you.
Yeah,
but I've changed my eating habits a lot over the last decade. It's nice to see. It seems like just culturally we're moving more in that direction. More and more people are paying attention to what they're eating, where the food came from, just giving it more thought than just showing up and digging in. And it's good. You guys obviously serve very fresh, clean, whole food here, not a lot of ingredients.
Right.
We'll talk about kind of tell me a little bit about the evolution of your cooking philosophy over the years, and from CIA to, working down in New Orleans and working at French Laundry and Solbar. I mean, what have you learned over the years, and what have sort of become the staples of your philosophy of food?
Well, the touchstone of it, and is really, it goes all, and it's odd because I think about this more now than I have in probably the last 7 or 8 years. But when we compose the menu here, I really tried hard over the years not to name drop. Oh, and when I was at the French Laundry, we did this, or when I was at Gary Danko, we did this. But every night at the French Laundry, all the chefs de partie would sit down with the chef or the sous chef or chef de cuisine and write the next day's menu. And to me, in the beginning, it seemed to me as if these compositions were just being spun out of thin air.
Okay.
And just like, wow, where did that come from? How did he come up with beets and leeks? How did he come up with roasted chicken with sumac? Or how did he come up with veal sweetbreads with truffles and celery? And then as I got to know more about cuisine and the history of French cooking and what was happening at the time in the U.S. and who the influential chefs were, I came to realize, and also as I began to explore more international food through cookbooks and visits to San Francisco and things like that, I realized that there were so many established flavor combinations from around the world that Thomas Keller and the other cooks there were drawing on, that we could use fantastic local ingredients to realize great versions of a dish from Southeast Asia, or a dish from the Levant, or a dish from Brittany, or whatever it was. And so they weren't coming up with things out of thin air. They were coming up with things that were new to me and new to the diners, but they were combinations that people had been eating in different parts of the world for scores of years or hundreds of years, or whatever it was. And so it was just there was never any, hey, let's smash these two things into each other and see what happens. There was never any experimental cooking there. It was right at the limit when it came to what the technology was at the time, but the guest was never treated as the guinea pig or anything like that. So I reflect back on that, not in and of itself and those compositions, but as a way to compose our menu here. And so we have the first good watermelon of the season. Well, one thing that a lot of folks are unaware that watermelon is fantastic with is Thai fish sauce. So we're using this, melons, watermelon, and the other summer melons are amazing with fish sauce. And so we have a table sauce, which it's a common ingredient, a common recipe of fish sauce, water, lime juice, sugar, garlic, and chili flakes that we use to dress cucumbers, radish, and watermelon. The rest of the salad is seasoned with peanuts, mint, cilantro, Thai basil, and then this big puffed rice cracker with nutritional yeast on it. So it has all these elements of umami and all this depth, but none of it comes from Parmesan cheese or red wine or any of the or mushrooms or some of the other more common sources of umami. It comes from fish sauce, which you don't often see paired with fruit. But again, in one part of the world, fish sauce has been eaten on melons and on ripe fruit for who knows how many generations.
Do you travel a lot around the world?
No, I wish I did.
Really? Okay. I was just curious. Because a lot of this stuff, and a lot of times it'll come from street food in a lot of cultures, doesn't it?
Yeah. But San Francisco, huge variety and array of food and places to eat from all around the world. Same thing with trips to New York City now and then. So
okay. All these years in the business, why? What happened that you decided now I'm going to open my own place? Or, I mean, had you always wanted to, or is it something that you was just waiting for the right time, or?
Had always wanted to, for sure, and waiting for the right time, the right set of circumstances, the right place, and I think in a lot of ways it's like deciding to have children, that like there's never a good time to do it.
Yeah, okay.
But it's something that you've always looked forward to doing, and it's exhilarating and terrifying. But I'm working as hard as I want to, as hard as I can, and it's thrilling. Yeah.
What did you? Okay, so you wanted to be in Chapel Hill. Talk about the culinary scene here and what you all are doing and kind of what your vision is for this place.
I'm still trying to figure out the culinary scene in Chapel Hill. There's so many established restaurants here, most of which I've been to by now. But it is it's forever changing. When I last lived here, Durham was a place that you didn't really go on for any reason, and now you could drive to Durham 2 weeks straight and eat at a different great restaurant every night. Chapel Hill has a lot of fantastic restaurants as well, and so trying to figure out what our niche would be here. There was obviously a million conversations around it, but we didn't really say, hey, Chapel Hill needs this kind of restaurant.
Okay.
What we said to each other was, this is the type of restaurant that I am driven to create, and get the right people, get the right design, get the right look, get the right ingredients, and we will make this succeed. So it kind of has become it's the sort of thing that I want to take on. It's when people reflect on it and say, "Oh, my dinner at Hawthorne Wood," I want that name to mean something that is their experience there. It's not a bistro. It's not fine dining. It's not X, Y, or Z. I really just want it to be everybody's favorite neighborhood restaurant. That's what I want for it.
Yeah. Well, these couches will help with that, I think. We're sitting in these awesome. How big are these things? God, these are
16 by 4 by 4, and there are two of them.
Two of them right here facing each other right as you walk in the front door in sort of a lounge area. This is freaking sweet. This is awesome. How about the design here? Was this a lot of this your ideas, or?
No, I am not an aesthete, and so my wife Elizabeth, again with our designer Amy Howard from AHA Collective in Carborough, and so my design approach is to say, I don't like this, I don't like that. Have you been there? I don't like that. I don't like the other things. It's just saying a lot of, because it's really hard to get a restaurant and make it not ugly. But Amy had all sorts of fantastic ideas. I had never seen framed panels of wallpaper before. I thought that was really cool. But she was able to think not just aesthetically, but ergonomically as well. And how is this space going to flow into the next? How are the guests going to get from the table to this chair? What are they going to see when they sit at this corner of the bar? Are they going to see the wrong light? Are they going to? So a million of those choices had to be made in advance, and then of course 10,000 more had to be made every single day when we put some new piece of equipment would come in, or pick a thing that can happen during construction. I was unaware of how constantly the space and the concept would evolve during the build out process.
But you opened kind of when you were planning on opening, didn't you?
We did. We sure did. Yeah.
Or even earlier or something? I think I saw something that said May and you open in April. This is like, everybody always opens like, they say I'm going to open in May, and I'll be like, okay, it's going to be September.
I've seen that happen many times, and I was determined not to fall into that trap, because I've had many friends say that, we're going to be open in May, and then it's like, okay, it's Thanksgiving. I'm going to stop asking now. So it was there's conversations I have with the construction team, and then but when the press asked, it was I wanted to make sure that we could deliver on what we said we were going to do. So the plan all along operationally was to be open in time to give ourselves enough momentum and enough experience to be good at being busy by the time graduation weekend and Mother's Day rolled around, which is beginning of May. So, and we were able to accomplish that. We had a really successful weekend. So yeah.
Have they had both now? Has graduation occurred?
Yes, those happen for Duke, Carolina, and Mother's Day. All those things happen on the same Sunday.
So it's the same Sunday. They were both
huge weekend around here.
And y'all did it 1 month after.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's impressive.
Thanks.
Because a lot could go wrong.
Well, a lot did go wrong. Yeah, but we had made a whole lot of mistakes by then that we didn't repeat that weekend. So that was great. I was really impressed with everybody's snap-to-itiveness and working with the team who did the build out and all the subs and my managers and everybody. They were very good at doing what they said they were going to do when they said they were going to do it, and that makes all the difference in the world. So. Okay,
but talking about that you have to have a really good team to pull that off, especially a month after you've just opened a new restaurant, your first. How do you find, and this is such a big issue right now, is labor. how did you find good people to be on your team?
I got really lucky. I did. I interviewed a lot of people. It only takes one great one to apply for the job. And so our general manager, Neil Benefield, came over from Pools in Raleigh, and before that he had spent 8 years at Nana's in Durham, a local institution, and just comes with a wealth of experience and knowledge, and his affability on the floor and sense of composure are amazing. And he's just gifted with an innate sense of hospitality and a desire to make people happy. And our sous chef, John Navaria, back there, had just moved to Raleigh after spending 4 years with Chef Slade Rushing down at Brennan's, a reincarnation of Brennan's in New Orleans, and was very fired up, is still very fired up, and was just one of those people. I've only met a couple around here who, are driven to talk about food at the level that I want to talk about it, and with the same desire and interest and sort of insatiable curiosity about it. So I don't know what people think when they walk into the kitchen and, to make a delivery or ask a question or whatever it is, and he and I are off on some rant, but it happens all the time, and it's really fun for us. So it's been a great partnership with those two, and from there the circle just began to grow of, okay, this lead server and this lead bartender and this lead cook and so on and so forth. And so we've been very fortunate with our hires, and tried to reward them and make them feel very valued here.
Yeah, make them feel like it's their place as well. And that's changed a lot, I think, over the years. I mean, you've probably seen a lot of changing mentality in restaurants about how you treat team members and how you treat staff, and you've got the cooks that are back there, yelling at people. I mean, there's TV shows about this within the last decade, but that culture is changing, and it seems like this generation doesn't put up with it as much.
I don't think they do. I mean, I listen to a lot of interviews, a lot of chef podcasts and things like that, and there are a lot of questions about, hey, how are women being treated? How are minorities being treated? How, are different walks of life being treated in the kitchen? And I think that it does have an ugly history. I don't know, but at this moment, I can only speak for my kitchen.
Yeah.
And so I know that we try to, to go back in time with my experience for a minute, I've been on one side of the line from chefs who were yelling and screaming and humiliating, and I'm just of, by luck or whatever, I'm just of the mentality that I realized that these chefs were not getting my very best.
Yeah.
And they just never would. They would get 99%, but not everything. And so I promised myself that when I was the one with the white coat on, I wouldn't be making people feel like this, no matter how bad they were messing up. So, so we have extremely high expectations back there. Our cooks and our staff all get immediate feedback. If they're doing great, we'll tell them. If they need improvement, we'll tell them. And I view my job as the owner and Neil and John's job as the managers to provide all the resources, all the equipment, the information, the recipes, everything that they need, everything that the staff need to be successful in their job, and then to hold them accountable. Like, to me, that's the equation, that's the interaction, that's the transaction between employer and employee at its best. And we keep it professional back there, and again, hold everybody accountable and have very high expectations. Our expectations are stratospheric, but they can be met.
What do you mean by stratospheric?
Well, it says on the wall back there, strive for excellence. Strive for perfection, accept excellence. Yeah. Like, that's, if you are gunning for perfection in every movement, every interaction, then you will achieve excellence. And the guideposts of our culture here are clarity, focus, precision, and grace. And so we're trying to be absolutely clear in our interactions, whether we're speaking on the phone to a guest or whether we're asking for a recipe. We're focused, we're present when we're at work, we're active listeners, and we're graceful when we're on the floor dealing with guests. That's something that, we're taking a deep breath and realizing that the guests are here to have a wonderful experience and spend time with us, and we're treating them like we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So that's what we're trying to get across in terms of culture, and then let the good food, let the good wine, let the smiles come from there.
Ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I was going to ask you. So grace is clarity, focus, precision, and grace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like that. Tell me about the community here. I mean, you've got so we're in Chapel Hill. We're in a big college town.
Mm-hmm.
What changes over the summer here, and does that affect you all, or is there enough neighborhood around here that that's not really your audience? Or I mean,
sure, I'm sure we'll slow down some in the summer. It hasn't happened yet, but that was certainly the rhythm of the year at the Carolina Inn. Here we are surrounded by a lot more affluent neighborhoods. We have residents who live in this building. We're close to many neighborhoods, but sure, kids get out of school and people go out of town for the summer, and but we'll see. And I'm thinking that our patio will be probably 6 months a year, spring and fall, and then it might be a little bit too warm out there during the summer, and people come sit here in the lounge in the AC. So I'm looking forward to a great summer, and So I've probably said this in every month of the year in my past, but really, summer is the best time of the year to be a cook. So I think that people will be excited about what we're preparing then.
Because of the ingredients?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about, you mentioned you have investors. So tell me about the process of finding good investors and, any advice you have. Because a lot of times, people wind up with investors that, down the road, they realize, this person's expectations are not the same as mine, or those things can go awry. So what were you looking for? Are these people you knew a long time? Or
Most of them, if not all of them, were people that I've known for quite some time. And there were some who were interested that I decided, I would rather not be in business with. And so it's a select group of people who are excited for me, and I'm excited to have them on board with this project. They've been very supportive, unbelievably supportive so far. And
how so? Just word of mouth and coming in and bringing friends, and what does a supportive investor do?
all those things,
yeah. Okay.
And patient. That's a big thing. As we, it's a bit of a game of, once we were fully operational 8 weeks ago, it became a bit of a game of whack-a-mole for me, because in the beginning it was just me and a computer, and I could handle every phone call and every email. But once we had staff and we were cooking, the phone is still ringing, inbox is still filling up, but I can't respond within 15 minutes to every email like I did before. So so those investors have just been they spread the good word. That's the biggest thing. But they refer their friends, and they're excited for us. And
when you were putting together the plan and working through this, what were some of the biggest, I guess, concerns or challenges you thought you might have?
Well, so I viewed this whole thing as just this. I viewed this whole project as like this giant decision tree. Okay, and the main trunk, like what's at the base, is the concept. Okay, let's get the concept rock solid. Let's get a mission statement. Let's say exactly what we're going to do in clear terms. From there, the trunk starts to branch out. And so maybe the first few branches are investors and location and business structure. Okay, so let's find a great lawyer. Let's build the LLC. Let's put together a core group of investors, and let's find a good realtor and start looking for locations. Let's not worry about logo let's not worry about any of the fun stuff or any of the, some of the other details yet. Let's work on those three things and make those big decisions first. And when the concept was solid, so the trunk of the tree is solid, and those first few branches are very solid, then other things start to branch out, and the project starts to gather speed. But I started on this in probably February of 2018, late nights, early mornings, putting this together, phone calls, meetings, put together the brand guide, of what I thought the restaurant would look like, and sending that to prospective investors and meeting with people. And, it really just was a continuous process from there. It's not an overnight process for anybody who hasn't been through it.
Yeah.
It takes a long time, and it's not something you can rush, especially when you're dealing with big institutions like banks. The gears grind really slowly. So.
Okay, so how many investors did you initially approach, and how many do you have?
That's a private matter.
Okay, cool. All right. But you did have some that it wasn't going to work, and you had your reasons why.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so you guys have, and then banks were involved as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any advice you give to people that are, first time trying to figure out the structure of debt, equity, investors?
I'm sure there are 1,000 ways to do it. Raise more than you think you need because you're going to spend more than you think you need.
Yeah.
You want to be well capitalized and have a good, I don't know whether you want to call it a cash float or operational account when you go into business, so that you're not on COD terms with you're going to be on COD terms with every liquor purveyor and beer and wine, because that's just what the law requires. But you want to have enough of a cash float to pay the payroll and pay the rent and things like that without having to scrape rock bottom.
Yeah.
So, and that's not an easy thing to do, is raise more than you think you need.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. You need probably 6 months worth, or. Yeah.
That's a good number.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. I think there was maybe it was one of your. It was success is 1,000 things, 1,000 little things done right, or something like that.
Right. I didn't make that up, but I've probably said it a bunch of times. Yeah.
I mean, there's literally 1,000 things you have to do to get a restaurant. It's a complicated business. It's a hard business. But there's just, there's so many folks that maybe they get into it for the wrong reasons, or maybe they are naive. I mean, there's this idea that, restaurants seem kind of sexy and you have this kind of vision of what it's like, but it's the reality of it is it's a grind, isn't it?
It is a grind, but it's funny. I posted on my Instagram account a night or two ago just a photo of what I eat in the kitchen, because I remember this old meme of this is it was a chef in a toque and a perfectly starched white coat out in a backyard grilling somewhere, and it's this is what the friends of chefs think that chefs do all day. So the picture on Instagram was here's a cup of coffee and a deli of fusilli with red sauce, and here's a stir fry similar to what I told you I had for breakfast this morning. Leftover rice, leftover beef, and a fried egg. So it's not glamorous, but it is rewarding. Feedback is instantaneous from the guests. You'll hear if they like the meal. You'll certainly hear if they don't. But server will come back and say, "Oh, 77 says they love this restaurant. They can't wait to come back." I'm like, "That's great, thanks."
You can never hear that too much.
No, that doesn't get old. But it's a bit like I imagine showbiz to be. There's behind the curtain, and then there's in front of the curtain. I'm sure what goes on behind the scenes at plays and concerts ain't that pretty. But what you see as an audience member is fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. So how large is your staff? I mean, I should know that because I could probably look.
I probably only got. Yeah, I'm sorry. Just look on schedule. I think we've got about 16 full-time employees.
16 full-time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And by the way, I thought it was when we first started talking about doing this, you mentioned you had listened to the podcast and ours, and then you just told me that you listened to a lot of them. So you're with all your experience in the industry and all your success, you're still learning all the time? For sure. There's always little tidbits and tricks, and I think that is probably, a cook asked me, I can't remember exactly how he phrased the question, but a cook asked me, something similar to what you asked me before. It was like, what do I need to be successful? Like, how am I going to end up as a chef, 10 years from now? And I said, I don't know, but I think the only two things that you really have to avoid, I think, in the kitchen in this day and age, you have to avoid dogma, because there's so much information available. Don't think that there's only one way to do things, or you really, really have to have your eyes open. And then the flip side of that is, the other thing is, you can't be incurious. You have to be curious, because, the same, on my crew back there, there's a cook back there who's teaching us how to make, he's bringing in SCOBY and teaching us how to make kombucha.
And so it's all these different influences. There's so much information out there that you can really turn to your advantage. It's not like the old days of culinary contraband, which was photocopied notebooks, passed from one cook to the other on Xerox paper. Like I still have boxes and boxes of those in my attic, and they're very dear to me, but they're largely useless now. The information that's just at your fingertips these days is really something else. I mean, I think there's something to paying your dues in the sense of working hard and learning how to do things the right way. But there's also, cooks these days can buy, the giant modernist cuisine cookbook, watch a bunch of videos, and probably pull off some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and the guests are more educated these days too. So you kind of have to. I mean, they're more aware. There's cooking shows on all the time,
right.
And people are like, they're more dialed into what they're eating. So you kind of have to stay ahead of that, don't you? You have to be curious, and you have to, competition's tough, but then it's a good thing. Probably keeps you on your toes.
It's a good thing, and it drives you if you are committed to surprising and delighting the guests, then it's a constant race to stay ahead of them for sure. Yeah.
Who are some of the local folks that here, or Durham, Raleigh, that and admire?
Chefs?
Yeah, or just restaurant owners, there just seem to be so many good restaurants, like you said, Durham and now here, and Raleigh's got this amazing culinary scene.
Right, yeah. No, Colin over at the Farrington House probably does the most complex food that I've seen around here. Just utterly gorgeous. You go and talk to him, and he's like, oh man, I don't have a pastry chef, so I'm also the pastry chef right now. So it's not it's a Relais and Chateau property, but it's not one that is, he doesn't have this army of commis around him. He's really in there day to day. So I really respect what he's doing. Jeremy Blankenship took over for me at the Carolina Inn, and he's doing food that is probably a bit more what the Carolina Inn really should be. Just very hardcore Southern ingredients, Southern preparations, but really, really dialed into something that it reminds me of, like Peninsula Grill in Charleston back in its heyday, and some things like that. So I think he's doing a fantastic job over there. And Mike Lee at M Sushi, fantastic sushi over in Durham. And then Gabe Barker at Mercado. Like I never had a bad meal there. It's always beautiful, bright, clean flavors, a very Italian bent to it. But, he's, 200 feet from the Carborough Farmers Market. And so it's the what he puts on the plate is always popping, and great pie, too. And pizza's great.
Great pie.
Yeah.
Any good Southerner likes good pie. So you won 7 Michelin stars, is that right?
Yeah.
Was that... that seems like that would be a lot of pressure to continue to win Michelin stars. The pressure did build because the expectations
built
gonna,
all the time. Right, the first time it was fantastic, and then about 48 hours later, I looked at the chef de cuisine, Ryder Zetz, who is, I'm sure you'll be hearing about him a lot soon. He's in Nashville now, man, now it starts like 363 days until we find out again. Because we didn't know how we got a Michelin star. You're just cooking and trying to make things better. Well, there's no, there are no published parameters or anything like that. You go onto the website, all it says is stars represent the food that's on the plate.
Okay.
That's it. So just hopefully keep cooking good food and make it a little better. But yeah, the pressure did build, but I certainly wouldn't trade those awards for anything, because that was the first time that it was like, okay, here is, not a food critic who may have certain proclivities and opinions, and here is not, a certain publication or whatever, but like here's a century-old establishment that is saying, okay, you're at this level. And so that was affirming and exciting.
Excellent. So you have 3 kids.
Yeah.
Are the kids in here a lot?
They are. They were in here for staff meal last night. We sat on the patio, and it's a good time.
Are they sort of, Do they have the culinary gene?
I hope not. I don't know.
You hope not.
They do. It comes and goes. Yeah, my daughter, who's 6, likes to flip the French toast, and she and her middle brother had a mobile lemonade stand yesterday. Nice. And the older boy, William, likes to scramble his own eggs, and it comes and goes for them. But we'll see.
Where do they do the lemonade stand?
They put it. We had that old. I don't know if you probably had a chariot that you can either push your kids in or pull it behind your bike. Yeah. They put the lemonade in there and stuck a flag on there and pushed it around the neighborhood.
Mobile stand. Yeah. Nice. Did you talk to them about the foundation of the business first and what it means to make a profit, or is it just get out there and just get a quarter per cup if you can?
They don't understand that they are, have been provided with the food inventory already, and the sugar's paid for and the lemons are paid for.
That's like a mandatory thing. If I don't care if I literally just had a cup of lemonade, like if kids are selling lemonade, they got my business. I love that.
Absolutely. That's
you
my
have
wife
to
and I
do
feel
that.
the same
if you
way.
drive by, unless I've actually done, I had to do
lemonade.
that recently. I drove by and I was like, I'm going to get money. I'm coming back. I'm not dissing you. And I did. I drove home and got like 2 quarters or whatever and drove back. But like, you got to do that. That's like just, that's a must. But, which little entrepreneurs, man, I think it's great. I love, and that's one of the things that I'm just so thankful we serve so many folks like you and folks that, own independent restaurants, because all of you are entrepreneurs and you're out there and you're taking a risk and you're investing time, energy, money, passion, love, blood, sweat, tears, all of it into your business, and you're supporting your local community and putting money back into the community and hiring local. I mean, it's just awesome. I love what you're doing. I love what all of y'all are doing. I see your staff members over on schedule fly right there on that laptop. That's funny. Oh man!
Right on.
Sorry, I just noticed. I was like,
"Hey, I recognize that interface. Nice."
Well, look, I know you're busy, so I'm gonna let you roll. But I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, because I know you're very busy, and it's an honor. It's really an honor, and I thank you very much.
Thanks. No, the pleasure's mine, and we're so excited to be open and be part of this community. So yeah.
Good deal, man. All right, that's a wrap, folks. We'll talk again soon.